What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets Haver. Pretty soon you're going to see my beautiful little face again because I'm healing up. But the good news is Sheets is coming off a great day yesterday. He had another great finish. I had a really good Friday. Didn't play this weekend as usual, but almost won the 250 on Friday. I ended up with winning 5K, but it was close to the 20K and then cash deep in the other stuff. And Sheets, talk a little bit about yesterday, and let's jump into tonight's slate.
Yeah, so let's share my lineup here. So I played literally 2 lineups yesterday on FanDuel. And one of them got second in the Monster, fourth in the Slam, and then obviously like 115th in the $5. And I ran kind of cold and then really kind of hot. So I was kind of in first for like, top 5 for like a decent amount of time. I basically, as you could see, I just basically went a 4-4 with Toronto and the Yankees. And I used Peralta as my pitcher, who was again, it's what when you play over the weekend, like you end up with like a lot of guys lower owned than you think, because I just really presumed Peralta was going to be like uber chalk yesterday.
Right.
I mean, I just couldn't imagine playing anybody else, honestly. Like, I played one lineup with McCullers just as a hedge. I just really thought that Peralta was a lock, and he ended up only 16%. And I was actually in first for a while, and then this guy got a ninth inning home run with Ohtani, okay, to go past me by a decent amount. But then I got really fortunate. First of all, Texas came back after McCullers left the game, so that cost McCullers a win, right?
Right.
That was one thing that I ran hot. The second thing is that there are these guys that had Milwaukee's that were kind of chasing me, and they had like bases loaded, no outs, and like the bottom and whatever, and they ran into double plays and stuff. And then I had to fade like Freeman had a grand slam, which thankfully nobody had that was within fighting range of me. And then even to that last inning, I had to protect the win for Peralta. He left the game, he was up 8-0. Okay.
Right.
And then so they had to protect the win, and then so they left the guy on second base, and if that guy got scored, not only would I lost the win, but then another guy would have been coming up for a guy in third. So where it looks like, I just barely got beat for first by like 1 point by an Ohtani home run. It wasn't exactly like that. I was really like very fortunate to hold on for second. Third and fourth were really on my tail. And when you got two guys on your tail, all from the same enter, you know what I mean? There's both these guys from the same guy.
Right.
Like, that you gotta fade all kinds of combinations. So I was very, very fortunate to do that, but I'm very happy and ready to move up.
Beautiful. Well, great job. And let's get busy, and let's figure out what we can get going tonight on this slate. We obviously don't have any basketball stuff because there's not any basketball, but there will be the 2-game slate tomorrow and the 2-game slate the following day. I'm kind of into that, and I'm even going to play those little tiny ones because I think this should be a lot of fun. So, but with baseball,
I would also like to say, for those of you who survived the NBA season, as they say in my part of the country, mazel tov. Congratulations if you've survived with any money and your sanity. The combination of the two, there are people that probably made some money, and there are people that kept their sanity. But if anybody made money and kept their sanity, I mean, they're like better than I am, because that was rough. I actually closed out the season last night on a good note. I actually made 50% ROI on my NBA money last night. So thank you for that, and we're happy to put to bed the regular season. I will never have to play Freddie Gillespie again, I don't believe. I will never have to play like 80% of the guys I played over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And by the way, I actually did have a good NBA season, factoring all in, because I went through a couple of tears, but I didn't keep my sanity, I don't think. So
no, definitely not.
I only got one of the two. It hasn't been the best time. But last thing about the NBA, I just have to say, very good on the season-long bets, even though Bradley Beal got the Wizards in the playoffs, got the Wizards with the winning, going to get the Jokic MVP. So it's going to be a good time. And got, most importantly, Phoenix to win the division. So
I have two very, very unlive. Well, one liver than I thought, but one I have two bets. I have. Do the Pacers even make the playoffs?
The players. Well, you mean they're in the play-in game?
Yeah. So I have them at 30-1 to win the conference. So they're dead. And I got still at like 100+1 the Knicks to win the championship. So they're better off than when they started, like technically, but the time value is kind of like they're probably still 100-1. Let's put it that way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I hear you. All right, well, let's get into the MLB stuff. Let's why don't you pull up the first game and we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm really getting there. Okay, so Mets against Atlanta. You know what we get to do? We get to press my my under K prop on Max Fried. Is he like 6.5 again?
I don't have it up in front of me at the moment. I don't have that part.
All right. I really don't have much interest in this game at all. No Mets, no Atlanta. Atlanta is actually tracking okay. It's like a raw like points type thing, but they're too expensive to get to make them a good stack for me. So they're not really grading out for me at all. So I'm actually kind of off of this game in its entirety.
Yeah, I like Fried. And I think actually I do have his K prop now. It's 5.5. Which actually decent. It's not terrible. Yeah, I like him. I've always been. This guy is just such a good real life pitcher in my opinion. And sure, he'll give up a little bit of hard contact here and there, and sure, he doesn't strike everybody out like we want him to. 7,300, reasonable rate. I think he's like pretty safe for like 15 to 25s if he gets hot here. Not the most exciting play, but definitely a guy who's on my list to start the day. I'm gonna have to relook at Atlanta, and as we're doing this, I usually have my weather stuff all together. I don't have all of it together yet, so that might end up depending a little bit because Atlanta at home in good weather is just it's always interesting. And Taijuan Walker is like has good stuff, but he's not a guy who can't blow up at all. He's a guy you can get to if things go right, and I'm always sort of looking to stack Atlanta. So it looks like the hitting weather is pretty decent in Atlanta, pretty normal. A little bit of wind blowing in, but nice and warm, so the ball should carry. But yeah, so I have some interest in Atlanta. I guess that's where but I'm probably gonna have to revisit at the end of this slate.
Any one player standoff from Atlanta as a one-off or anything like that for you? Or
it's sadly for me, it's always the same thing when it comes to Atlanta. Like everybody says the same thing, and it's true. You can play Acuna or Freeman, and they're both good plays. Nobody from a pricing standpoint stands out to me, but Acuna is always one of the best plays, if not the best play on the slate.
Let me ask you a question. Now here's an interesting question that comes up a lot. So if Acuna sits again, do you look at that as, oh, good, I could play Atlanta stacks cheaper, or, oh, crap, the stack's just not going to be as good?
No, I think the stack is not nearly as good. Now, occasionally you can still have some blow-up games anyway, but this spot is not so good where you would want to do that. You know what I mean? If it was against a really weak pitcher, then I'd probably still be interested in stacking cheaper. But because it's a decent enough pitcher, I probably would just ignore the stack entirely.
I would like to say, by the way, as an overall slate preview, I think it's like a totally clear what you're supposed to do on this slate, and we're going to get to that a little bit later.
All right, well, let's jump over to this game then, because this is going to be an interesting situation. I'm not sure why the run total isn't lower even. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Sheets.
Why is the wind's blowing in? You're saying
you got the wind blowing in pretty strong from right center. There's been a lot of games with similar, and it seems to be a very, very, a significant increase to pitchers and a really massive decrease to any power whatsoever.
Let me ask you a question though. I look at Lester and Azalea as two, and then this is my bias, as like two, like kind of like, I don't want to say opposite, but I guess sort of opposite type pitchers. Like Lester's more, control, has some tricks, keep the ball in play, and just hope that they don't hit it that hard. And Azalea is more, a strikeout pitcher who probably is a little wilder. If the wind is blowing in, like for example, like which type of pitcher is that going to positively impact more? Someone like, presuming my analysis is even correct, but someone like Azalea or someone like Lester?
Well, one thing I want to say about Lester real quick is these are not similar pitchers. Like Alzolay is good. Lester's one of the worst pitchers in baseball at this point, I think. Okay. Maybe not the worst, but he's on the bottom. He's in the bottom 20%, 25%, in my opinion. He's gotten away with somehow playing games, and 2 of his 3 games that he's played, I don't know about the third one, have been in the best pitching conditions with the best pitchers umpires so far. And he still can't strike anybody out. So Lester is never going to be in play. You're never going to hear me mention his name. So I don't consider them. I do consider Alzolay a decent enough pitcher in a much tougher matchup, but a decent enough pitcher. So what I would say is it's going to depend on what kind of guy. I mean, I don't. It's hard to compare these guys. I don't see them as being the opposite. The only opposite I see in them is that one's good and one sucks.
Okay.
But so I don't know how. It's hard for me to measure these guys. If you had a fly ball pitcher, it would benefit the fly ball pitcher more than anything because you're suppressing the home run power, which is really the fly ball pitcher's most dangerous thing. But guys who walk a lot of guys and give up a lot of singles, you could argue that sometimes the wind blowing in not hurts them, but doesn't help them the same way it does a fly ball pitcher, if that helps.
Okay. So do you like Alzolay here a little bit?
Yeah, I do a little bit. I'm interested. I mean, the price is not ideal. Again, he's got decent strikeout stuff. It's not incredible, but it's good. He's got good strikeout stuff. He's had some really tough matchups and been really good in tough matchups. And I like Washington's lineup in general a decent amount. Obviously, they did really well for me on Friday, but I just with the weather like this, if it stays like this, I'm going to have at least some interest in Alzolay. So I would probably put him ahead of Fried as of right now because the strikeout stuff is a little better and the weather really looks like it's going to suppress the power quite a bit. And I would love to stack the hell out of the Cubs here against Lester in the what's it called revenge game, but I just can't do it at these with the wind blowing in like this.
Yeah, let's remember to put to the side these guys like Fried and Alzolay as possible kind of SP2 pivots for when we get to Kikuchi later. You know what I mean? Right, so let's remember that you didn't think Fried was that bad. Remember we didn't think that Alzolay was that bad. We'll just kind of remember that when we get to other guys later.
Yep.
I have Washington actually as just say what is one of the like eighth favorite stack or something like that. I mean, like so they're in there, but nothing resembling a priority for me.
Gotcha. How about Chicago, Minnesota? What do you got over there?
Yeah, so this is not say similar. This is actually not similar, but it's you have two guys who are okay, I guess, and you're not going to want to play either pitcher because there's just not a lot of strikeout upside, and yet I think that they're at least Happ is good enough to kind of keep the game together. You know what I mean? Like he could get a win, he could pitch well enough to win. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't go attacking the hitters against Happ. I might be, again, it depends on whether you believe in, the washed up lefty theory tonight, whether, hey, you got two of them going, actually three of them going. You got Lester, Keuchel, and Bumgarner all on the same slate.
In a row, it's been this way. It's great.
All on the same slate. I'm not going to go for either pitcher. I might be able to get talked into both sides of the hitting between, either one really, but I'd be more inclined, I think, to attack Keuchel. I mean, even though again he's been around forever and he's got tricks. But I guess the secondary stacks, things like that, I might try those. Neither of them are like my top four, but I do have Chicago and Minnesota as my next group.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of it. I definitely prefer attacking Happ to Keuchel. We just saw this matchup last week and Happ got killed. Keuchel did his normal thing. I'll pitch 5 2/3 innings, get one strikeout, but limit all the damage. Guys who just limit damage like Keuchel does is hard. Happ is the opposite. He doesn't. He's ready. He says, "Bring on the damage." You know what I mean? You're gonna come and crush me. Not to mention, but both of these teams have a lot of standout hitters against lefties. I mean, Tim Anderson, I think, is one of the best plays on the slate. Look, Abreu against anybody is always going to be a great play, but you do get the platoon advantage. Not that it matters. He does have tons of power against righties, but I love Abreu as well. And then, unfortunately, we don't have the guys we used to stack the White Sox with in these spots. Like last year, it was easy because we played Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez, and it felt like you had a really, really nice stack. Moncada's better from the left side, but I don't mind him. I'm definitely open to Mercedes, and I like the stack for Chicago. But I'm, again, more probably a 2 or a 3 man. And Minnesota, I feel pretty much the exact same way, even though I generally don't want to go after Keuchel too much. When you've got, Donaldson's price makes him a little hard to afford, but I think he's interesting. Nelson Cruz is 4.9. That's too cheap. Like, this guy is one of the all-time great against lefties. I believe he had a home run in this matchup the other day, too. You got Kyle Garlick, who probably is going to be leading off at 2.4. Miguel Sano is 3K and just hit a home run yesterday, and not as good against lefties. Mitch Garver over the last few years has been one of the best guys against lefties in baseball. All of those guys are in play for me, but my priorities would probably, well, Garlick because of the price, and Cruz. And then on the White Sox side, it would probably be Anderson and Abreu, maybe Mercedes. I like all of those. Andrew Vaughn also is another way to get cheap access to this part. So I like both of these very much for a mini stack. And by the way, excellent hitting weather based on history, but it's a very small sample. And it also looks to be, though, the wind blowing in, but it's nice and warm in Minnesota. The dew point, they got the high dew point, the 48 dew point. The wind is blowing in a little, but I think this is a good home run spot. So I want to get some bats from this game.
Yeah, this could be an interesting game stack, huh?
Yeah, but but I don't want to go I'm tired of trying to play games and trying to get my 4 runs to all be the exact 4 home runs. I'd rather get my 2 or 3, I'm sorry, my 5 guys. I'd like to get my 2 or 3, and I think that's just the way I'm approaching this particular group. And that's what I like to do in general. It's a little different than what most people do, but
Remind me, by the way, I ask you every single time, who are we allowed to play Grandal against, lefties or righties? I forget.
Righties.
Okay.
Although he has improved a little bit over lefties over the past few years, but
okay,
I'd rather just play Mercedes.
We'd rather use him when he's against a righty.
Right, when he's playing, yeah, exactly. When he's batting left, because he actually, his average it's not his average, it's just his home run power is much less historically. All right, but yeah, I'm very into that game. So I'm gonna mark it down here. You want to talk a little bit about the Yankees in Texas here?
Yeah. So Cole is clearly one of the top pitching options. I think it's between him and Darvish as who the top pitcher is, and not a lot to say other than that. The other thing is that the Yankees are, from a raw points perspective, probably going to project to be like one of the top stacks on the slate. I don't have them as great of a value as maybe others might. I only have them as like my 3rd or 4th best option. So if they're going to be just really popular, I might end up fading that. Which, by the way, if you do play, for example, like, some pairing of Cole and Kikuchi or something, you're going to want to be somewhat different in the hitting anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm probably going to be fading the Yankees, although, they certainly, you flip a coin, who's going to score the most runs on the slate. It's hard to say anything but the Yankees, right? But I'm probably, from a DFS perspective, probably going to be underweight on them.
That's my current plan as well. It makes me nervous because Jordan Lyles he sucks.
Sure.
He can. I mean, if this game was in New York, I would be all over this. It is hard with the pricing and the ownership. I'm guessing the ownership might get a little bit more spread today, so maybe you're not spending quite as much for them. And maybe we don't need to talk about stacks, but Stanton and Judge are still in great spots. Like Lyles gives up plenty of power to the righties too. So I kind of think Stanton and Judge are still terrific one-offs. But I don't think I'm as interested in stacking. I sort of agree with you there. I can make a good argument for like most of the hitters in this lineup because I think Lyles isn't good, but I'm just not as excited about the full game stack as I would be. And I'll take a look later at, I actually don't know. It's always hard to get pitcher data on these Monday slates, but I'm sorry, umpire data. And just try and see if there's anything that sways me one way or the other. Because if you get a guy who's, it's a really big hitters umpire and Lyles, if he has to try and be pinpoint with this Yankees team, it just feels like a recipe for disaster. But the Yankees, even when they score runs lately, like what makes them appealing is that they hit so many home runs. They score more runs from home runs than any team in baseball by far. So you want to try and get exposure to that, but does that necessarily mean the Yankees are a great team in general to usually make a 4-man stack with, because you're playing for the home runs. The guys walking and getting there and all that stuff, there's just not enough of that for them. They score off of home runs. So getting the 3 to 4-man stacks, I like to do a lot with the Yankees, and maybe I would do a Judge, Stanton, maybe Frazier or Higgy just for the price savings. But I like that. I just don't want to make the full stack here. And I love Cole. I think Cole's probably the best pitcher on the slate. I don't think that it's any big surprise that I love him.
You think that he's I guess we'll get there, but you think he's better than Darvish?
He's just always better than Darvish. So the only question is, does the matchup or whatever.
Well, I meant today, given the price today.
I think it's really close. You have two of the worst teams in baseball.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really. I think it's close.
I agree with you on that. I think it's very close.
But I also think that when you do that, I don't. Again, I don't play like everybody else does these days. I don't need to pay up for one pitcher and pay down for another pitcher. If I want to play good pitchers, I'll just take both of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Cleveland, the Angels. What are your sort of initial thoughts here?
Yeah. First of all, from the pitchers, let me just dispense with that. I'm not going to be playing either of these guys. I seem to recall Sandoval being actually like an actual pitcher, and he's 5,200. That's really the best I remember.
He doesn't pitch though more than like 2 innings.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't even need him anyway. Right now, the Angels are my top stack. Given everything, that's just where I am right now. That would include a mixture of cheapos and expensive guys like Trout and Ohtani, and then Upton, Taylor Ward, and just Iglesias to kind of like move around the base paths a little bit. So that's where I am like for now, and we'll see where I end up later. But that's where I'm at. Cleveland for me is like one of those, like, along with the White Sox in Minnesota and Washington, that kind of tier. I'm not gonna, if I get 20 lineups, I'll probably get there. And that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I like the Angels too. I like, it's going to be an LA day for me a little bit. I like the Angels, and I don't think there's like a specific like one play that you need to make or anything on their team. It's just I like the whole stack. I obviously like Trout. I like Rendon. I like either of the lefties and the lefties that who won't be owned at all. Ohtani might have, Ohtani will. Sorry, that's a weird one. Ohtani might have some, but I don't think that Jared will. I don't think actually either of them will have that much. But Ohtani is, I mean, to say he's too cheap, the guy just every time I look up, he's hitting a home run. David Fletcher, a cheap way to get exposure to the stack. Justin Upton is a really cheap way to get. I mean, Justin Upton, I guess that's the one-off play. I know he's further down in the order. I know he's struggling and only hitting whatever. He still hit home runs. He still hit home runs this year, and that's all we really want from him. So trying to pick out a home run with Justin Upton, who's 0 for his last, I think, 13 or something. I don't think it's a bad idea to do it today. But yeah, I really like this. I like this stack quite a bit too.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah.
You like anything from Cleveland? Sorry about that.
I think everything is fine if you like the normal guys. It's fine. Ramirez is always a guy who I love to play when he's going to have low ownership. I don't think it's going to be crazy low today. He does stand out as being one of the best third baseman options. Franmil Reyes is cheap enough at 4.2. People tend to overplay him against lefties. He's good against both lefties and righties, so it's fine. Maybe if he's earlier in the lineup, you could argue for an Ahmed Rosario. Like I think some people will stack this game. I think both sides of this game will actually have fairly similar ownership. The Angels will be higher because they've got the cheap guys in Upton, and oh, by the way, Taylor Ward is 2,300.
That's what I mentioned before. Yeah,
I missed that one. Yeah, the Angels are really hard not to love tonight with all these values. But yeah, I just don't find myself going to Cleveland very much, and that maybe I'll change later today. Luplow might only get 2 at bats because Sandoval's only going to pitch. Might only get 1 at bat and then get pulled. So that's why I would stay away from guys like that.
They still do that with him?
Yeah, he's not like a player on their team. He's a platooner.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. In all fairness, the last week he's played most games, but you look 1 at bat, 3 at bats, and then you go back down. He has every other game is basically 2 at bats. So yeah, he could play a full game, but I'm not going to bet on that. He's not so great where I need him to play the full game anyway. I actually think that you could make an argument for Buehler over what's his name today. I don't think you can say him over Cole, but I think you definitely can say that Buehler might be a better play than you in this next one. So I do like Buehler a lot. I don't think I'm going to be alone in that. I think a lot of people are actually going to look at Buehler. So I like Buehler as my somewhere between 2 and 3 for me as my pitcher. Cole's going to end up being number 1 in general in these spots, all more than everybody. Just the guys who you can't get out of the game, like the Coles and the Scherzers, and it's sort of like up to them. It feels like I just always am going to side with those guys. And I'll take the over on the Dodgers run total. I'll take the over. I'll I'll stack the hell out against Bumgarner. I know the lineup got weaker without Seager. I don't care. I am buying part of it, that I think Bumgarner has bounced back nicely for him. I do not buy that it's going to hold up. And I don't think that against a team like the Dodgers that it's something that I'm certainly not going to pitch him. I don't know if I'll fully stack the Dodgers, but there will probably be a couple Dodgers in every lineup. Mookie Betts to me is one of the best plays on the slate to spend up for. Will Smith is expensive, but I like him. It's going to be interesting because we won't know how the lineup shakes out because they tend to release it nearly after lock because the game starts so late. But Nuse with his power at 2.6, even like DJ Peters at 2.4. I don't know if it'll be Raley or who else they're going to play, but all of these guys are decent enough to where I'm willing to take those shots and mix them in with the obvious Mookie Betts play. Muncy you can play against lefties as well. I'm trying to real quick just do a. It's even though we've been in the same division with him forever, I don't have his current BVP, so I'm trying to get that called up right now. Just because there should be a pretty good sample size here. Even though it's not like he's been pitching against them. That's actually pretty decent. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, none of it looks good for Bumgarner, but it doesn't look like it. There's not like a hitter other than Justin Turner who stands out, who's, I think this is a good spot. I think Justin Turner should be a little higher on my list. He's had 4 home runs off of him and 17 at bats. That's pretty good. 4 home runs, 71 at bats. Jesus, that's a lot of history. So that's actually just about average. But yeah, Muncy, Turner. I mean, mostly it's going to be Betts and Turner with the cheap guys for me. But I do love the whole Dodgers stack, and I think it's one of those days where you're going to see a lot of Dodgers and Angels in my lineups today, and it's not just a home field thing. It's just I think they're two of the best spots. And I'm just going to say right now, if Bumgarner is going to, even if you don't stack them, if he's going to keep this control thing back up that he's been doing, and if you're going to be around the plate enough, these guys are going to punish you. And he's not walking at anybody anymore lately, which makes the full stack sound worse, but it also does make it, he's going to be around the plate and there's probably going to be a lot of hard contact.
I obviously would prefer if Pollock were not on the injured list so I could play him.
Yeah, Pollock and Seager, yeah.
I obviously would prefer if Seager were not on the injured list so I could play him. But then again, you get Mookie under 6K again, which is good. Mm-hmm. And then Turner and I guess Will Smith. I think I'm going to be, if I play the Dodgers, I would just play the platoon guys. I think. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite getting to them as a full stack, but I certainly am not going to argue with any of those as one-offs. That's for sure. And I am not quite getting to Buehler. Certainly is a very natural, price pivot off of those other guys. I'm just not going to get there. I'm probably going to pay up for the top 2 if I don't if I don't go 1 and 1 down. But yeah, that's pretty much where I am.
I get it. It's weird. It's hard with me with Buehler sometimes because I actually think I don't think that Darvish is like I don't think that they're different worlds. Like I really do think that they're basically like the same guy. Like they're not the same, but they're. I actually think I could argue that in terms of consistency, that Buehler might actually end up being better. We're taking a very small sample size, and it wasn't that long ago that Darvish was like people thought it was 2 years ago. People were just convinced he was done. Yeah. I mean, you look at Buehler's consistency: 6, 6, 6, 7, 6, 6, 7. It's people go, oh, we're worried about the leash. We're worried about this. Why? Why is anybody worried about anything? He does the same thing every game. That's my argument for him, but. I definitely get the argument against the worst lineup in baseball. Seemingly the worst lineup in baseball, actually statistically the worst lineup in baseball. So I think we're both going to be interested, right, in you here, aren't we?
Yeah. Any interest in John Gray?
No. Okay. I get it though. I do. I just I'm just not going to do it. They back-to-back against San Diego, I still have enough respect for their offense. Even in a game where he pitched well last time, got 18 fantasy points, which is fine for his price. But it's not, I don't think that I don't feel like all excited about it. But if San Diego were to shake out like a really weird lineup, maybe it is actually okay because you already obviously have Tatis out of the lineup. If for some reason you didn't have a Machado or a Grisham or even a Cronenworth, guys who make it hard on the guys, there are some weak spots in this order. Maybe I should look at Gray Sheets. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite get. I mean, again, I had said I didn't quite get there. I mean, what you're doing is you're comparing Gray. Well, what you're comparing Gray to is guys like Fried and Azalea, for example, as like pivots off of Kikuchi, right?
Right.
You really just can't compare him to Kikuchi. Kikuchi's definitely a better play, but if you wanted to pivot off of him, you're comparing Gray to. And I actually have Gray better than those other guys. I have Gray better than Azalea. I have Gray about the same as Fried. So yeah, I could, you know what I mean? Like if that's what you want to do, like if you want to opt for a chalkier hitting build and just get off of Kikuchi, for example, and not pay up for the two pitchers, right? This is a lot of ifs. Yeah, I think Gray's in the player pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, it makes sense. It's funny. I didn't, for some reason, my first pass through today, I didn't think about him. And then I look at it. It's not like he's pitched a ton against all these guys, but he's been really good against. I mean, he's been really good against the guys who are in the lineup for the most part. Machado's handled him well, but yeah, okay. I'm starting to get interested a little bit in the Gray thing.
You like the San Diego hitting?
I mean, I'm looking at these bats, and it's not the same line. I like Grisham a lot. So
you can't get into the Brian O'Grady, Ha-Seong Kim situation. I mean, like,
I don't know what we're doing with this. Like,
or Tucupita Marcano.
You got no Hosmer there anymore. I just think it's Tucupita Marcano. What kind of a name is this? Maybe Tommy Pham. I know. I hear it, guys. Like Tommy Pham sucks. You can't hit anymore. I know what you're gonna say. I will say he hit a home run the other day. He's actually been hitting the ball pretty well over the last couple of weeks. And he's 3.2K, probably going to be batting cleanup today. So Grisham and Pham would be my favorites.
Yeah, I got San Diego as my fourth best stat. I have them tied with the Yankees for pure value, but like that's based on these guys that are never going to do anything. I have guys like you said, like Brian O'Grady, Pham, Kim. Pham's like the best hitter I have. Like actually, Pham, Grisham. I didn't even use Machado when I was ranking these guys, so it's going to be rough to get there.
No one's going to play him. That's one thing you got going for you.
But on FanDuel, like if I want to compare, I want to put a stack together with like the Yankees or the Angels, for example, I could certainly get away with that.
Yep. I totally agree. I want to add something really quick. The Dodgers. I'm looking at the weather here, and obviously I'm in LA, and I know it's cold and kind of miserable. It's almost like it was like raining or like just wet yesterday and dark and it's cold. There's been a lot of games like this in the past, and I would just say there's been major power suppression to the Dodgers. So maybe I'm going to come a little bit off the Dodgers more and a little onto the Angels. Just wanted to throw that out there because I like to speak exactly about what I'm going to do. And I'm still gung-ho on some of the Dodgers, but I don't think it's going to be my primary stack in my biggest buy-in tournaments anymore. The weather when it gets to be high, almost multiple double-digit percentages, let's just say, and as a downgrade, and you've had hundreds of games that have compared to this in the past, it's all of a sudden like, oh, do we really want to do this on the, there's other slates out there, there's other bats to get in. Whereas the Angels Stadium, which is weird because it's just a little bit further south, it's a little bit warmer, the wind's blowing out, there's a better, just everything is better, and it looks like it has a little bit of a better bump for bats as opposed to the Dodgers, who have a huge decrease for their bats. San Diego also with a slight decrease, but they don't have. Oh, they do actually have a large sample size, which is kind of weird because the stadium's changed, so I don't trust that one quite as much. Anyway, but yeah, there's just to sum up a little bit of the weather stuff for the day. I for the early part, what we know. The Twins clearly best hitting environment on the slate, followed by the Braves and Angels.
Okay.
Is there
if you didn't like any of that,
I'm sorry, that was my fault. I for some reason thought we were. I like literally just didn't have this game on my screen. So okay, I've got it now. I looked through it. I just forgot about it. All right, what do you like, Sheets, in this one?
Well, it's probably the most important game on the whole slate. So I mean,
Kikuchi.
Well, so here's the deal. So this is what, again, true DFS, right? This is what I'm doing. And it makes sense to me, so I'm not gonna, this is what I'm recommending. So Kikuchi is going to project as throughout the industry as the best point per dollar play on the slate. Combination of his recent history, his ability to go up against lefties, and the Tigers, historical numbers against lefties, make that a very, very strong point per dollar play. And pairing with Cole and/or Darvish is going to make him extremely popular. So for me, and so the other thing that's going to happen in this game is that Seattle is going to be rate to be probably the best value cheapo stack there is, to be going with the double pairings of the top pitchers, right? So this is the way I'm looking at it. So for me, there's two things you could do. One is three things. One is play Kikuchi with one of those top two pitchers, and then play like off the board hitting. Second thing you could do is play the Tigers, which I like to do in general. Not the Tigers in general, but sort of. I mean, like whenever you have a chalky SP2, they're usually playing the Tigers, right? So that's why I like to do that. That's like a very risky thing to do because, like you mentioned, even though the Tigers can sometimes score a run, they just have no power, right? So to put that together. But I got to tell you what I'm kind of interested in. I'm kind of interested in my SP2. I'll play Mize. That's going to be my idea. Is I'm going to try to get leverage off of the double high pitching Seattle combination by playing Mize. I mean, like there are teams that everybody would stack against, right? And one of the Tigers, and it would always be Seattle. But it's a conversation I have all the time with you and myself. When you have like weak hitters versus weak pitchers, which one do you side with? Is the weak hitters the value, or is the cheap pitcher the value? And the answer usually is, well, where's the ownership? And for me, I don't think anybody's going to play Mize at all. And I think a lot of people are going to play Seattle. So the way I'm going to attack this is I'm probably going to play some Mize in my lineups with where I'm only using one SP1 at the top. Because if I said to hold these guys, I could play any of those other guys that we talked about, like Fried or Gray or any of the other non-Kikuchis. But I think that playing Mize gets you just a little bit extra boost of getting leverage against the Seattle hitting. So I don't know whether that was too confusing, too simple, too stupid, too smart, but I think that's where I am on this game.
I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that's a sharp thing to do. Is like you said, you could play the Mize thing. By the way, it's not out of the question that you could play both of the pitchers in this game.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's an interesting route that no one's going to take. So I see it. I mean, Mize has actually looked pretty good in some tough matchups lately, and I certainly get the so let's just talk for a second, because Jared Kalinick, I'm guessing, is going to be one of the most popular plays in the slate. And if he's not, then you have to play like all of him. This kid is one of the top prospects in baseball. I don't think one thing I've learned about baseball is every prospect over the past 3, 4, or 5 years, nobody fails. They all make it, and they all make it in explosive fashion. If you look at the best players in baseball right now, top 20, what are like 15 of them in the under 25? I mean, it's really crazy because the way they've been trained, the way they've gone through their whole lives, they just don't miss. So it's tempting to want to take these guys. If you want to pivot off of, he's 3K today. They bumped his price off after the monster game the other night where he helped me win not all the money, nearly all the money. You can take pivots off of him with guys like Kyle Garlick, with guys like Noose, Peters. There's some other cheap bets, Tommy Pham, but we're going to see this guy being popular a lot, like over and over and over again, because he's probably a guy who should be 5K right now or near 5K, and he is 3K, and he's going to be massive chalk, which is also going to make people want to play the stack too. You'll see Dylan Moore as another value option here. Mitch Haniger and Kyle Seager are the logical best normal hitters, and then Kyle Lewis, who actually is sort of fits in a little bit of the, maybe not the same mold as Kalinick, but certainly a young guy with some talent. Not as much as Kalinick probably, but still very talented. So we might see the Seattle lineup. It's going to be streaky throughout the season, but they're going to be really, really good to stack sometimes. To do it as chalk against a guy who's been pretty good doesn't feel great to me. So I'm sort of siding away from them, and I also think they're going to be the most popular stack, or they'll have two of the most popular players, or I don't know, two between 4-3 players. They'll have 60% ownership, I think. So I'm okay with staying away from it. I like your idea of Mize to sort of leverage against it. I am having a hard time with the Kikuchi thing because I really like him.
Yeah,
And
me
I
too.
don't want to play the two chalky guys. And if I did, I wanted to spend up for them and really go for the ceiling. But then I look at Kikuchi and we used to know him as the guy, he would get us the 6 innings and all that. But the strikeout stuff this year has been legit. And I mean, look at these teams that he's played against. It's been some tough matchups that he's been really good in. And he struggled. And yeah, sure, I could point out the times he struggled. He only had 3 strikeouts in 7 innings against Houston. He still pitched 7 innings against Houston, which is pretty good. And then there was at Boston. It was the other one he struggled. He also dominated Houston, and he dominated the Dodgers, and San Francisco. Like he's been really, really good. So I would say he's even worthy of a long shot play on FanDuel.
And the Tigers, by the way, they strike out an awful lot relative to other ways they make out. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I think Kikuchi and probably Cole, but one of the other 3 studs is the best build and certainly should be what you're doing in cash. But I love your idea for tournaments. I think that's really, really sharp about the playing.
I would also like to say, by the way, as exhibit 37 of the things that I like to talk about is let the record reflect. On May 14th, Jared Kalenic, hot prospect, broke out with 4 at-bats, 2 runs, 3 hits, 2 doubles, a home run, 3 RBIs, and 30 fantasy points. And next game, 3 strikeouts, 0 for 5. Game after that, 0 for 5. Right?
Yep.
So just everybody just keep that in mind when you're going to play guys like a next day off of blow up performances. These are
but this kid's going to go through like a 6 home run. He's legit. I agree with your point though in general, and I know what you mean. Like, yeah, don't think because a guy put up 40 fantasy points yesterday that he's going to put up any today.
Right. I would say it's less likely. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if in general I'd say it's less likely. It's always an interesting thing because I believe in hot stuff, hot streaks. Even Pierce, our new guy, is pretty into the hot streak stuff as well. But I hear you. But it's a good point. I mean, yeah, you're going to get a lot of wide range of outcomes with guys like that. What I would say is also he's going to have. I mean, there's just. I love the kid, but he's going to be 1,000,000% owned tonight. So you probably should be looking to try and fade him at this ownership, but unless you're stacking Seattle. All right, Sheets, anything specifically for the people before we get out of here?
No, I guess I'll just review, I suppose. So my top pitchers on DraftKings are Darvish and Cole, and I'm actually very, very close between the 2 of them. And then my top, top SB2 is Kikuchi. That just is what it is. And the top builds from, if you ran this 1,000,000 times, are going to be either Darvish Cole, Darvish Kikuchi, or Cole Kikuchi. That's just the way it's going to be. But for tournaments, again, I'm probably going to pay very few of the Cole Kikuchis. I'll play some maybe Darvish Kikuchis, but I'll play some Darvish Coles. As far as hitting goes, I have the Angels at the top. And then again, run this a zillion times. Seattle certainly looks to be good value, but I'm probably fading them at GPPs. And then on DraftKings, I like the Yankees next, along with San Diego. And then that other tier of Cleveland, White Sox, Minnesota, Washington. I brought up Detroit as a possible really wild stack. That's like double, triple leverage. I just don't know if I'm going to need it or if they have enough power to make it happen. On FanDuel, I agree with you. I think Kikuchi is a very, very interesting long shot play over there. The other 3 are very close, Darvish, Cole, and Buehler. And then on FanDuel, my stacks, I'm going to probably pair the low-owned, cheaper San Diego over there. Like just throw out Machado for the other guys with the Angels or the Yankees, and then the same guys underneath, like White Sox, Cleveland, Minnesota, Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's a good recap. The thing I'm struggling with this slate is. So I really think that I mentioned some really cheap plays. I mean, even Justin Upton, Taylor Ward, Kyle Garlick. I mean, you're talking about low 2Ks for guys who can play. You know what I mean? Yep. Guys who can get you there. Yep. And even on FanDuel, there's just tons of value. So but the thing that's hard though for me with this is obviously. So I'm obviously going to have Garrett Cole as my top pitcher. There's not, me. Look, the ceiling is just higher than everybody else's is, and he's hitting it every game. I mean, he's hitting it almost every game. It feels like at the moment he's in a really, really good form. But Darvish is the next most likely, but Kikuchi, I mean, Buehler, as consistent as he's been, you could argue that Kikuchi has shown more upside. I happen to think I know Buehler has the upside, obviously, but it's just kind of interesting. Like and on FanDuel, I really feel like all 4 of these guys and the prices are different enough where they can be interesting. Like if Darvish gets ignored because he's similarly priced compared to Buehler on FanDuel, I would be open to switching over towards Darvish. But I really like all 4 of those guys a lot, and I think that I don't see a way after even going through it. We talked about Free, we talked about Alzolay, we talked about Gray. I don't think I can play anyone but these 4 pitchers on this slate. That's my thing. I love the Chicago, Minnesota for mini stacks more than full stacks, but I'm open to full stacks as well. And I love the Angels. I think Seattle is completely viable, but maybe not what I'm doing. And then the Dodgers. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm on 4 pitchers in the handbills, either Darvish, Cole, Kikuchi, or Mize. Those are going to be my 4. SaberSim builds me some funny ones. I'll probably throw them in depending on how many lineups I build. But those are the ones that I'm going to actually, force.
Just be wary that 15K Buehler performance with complete game one hitter is coming one of these days.
Yep.
All right, man. Hey, well, this was fun. Good luck to everybody out there. We'll be back with you at 6 Eastern. I think it's gonna be a pretty casual thing. Probably might even be a shorter show because we won't have as much to talk about. It's a small slate. We don't have any basketball. Should be nice and relaxing.
Guys, bring some general questions. Again, no NBA. It's my blood pressure is not going to get above 40 probably the whole time.
I won't snap at Sheets anymore because I'm now relaxed and life is easy.
Life is good.
Everybody in chat, as long as they're not insulting me.
So wait, this is really funny. So I have a kind of a funny story. I should probably say it for 6 o'clock when I have more time. That's all right. So I had I told you I coached AAU basketball for like 5 years, and the name of the team was Lightning LFG, and everything. I brought LFG to the whole freaking team. Like everything was LFG. I had LFG hats, like the whole thing. Signed all the emails LFG. I had freaking the kids saying LFG. I had the parents saying LFG. I had everybody totally wound up 5 years. And then like this one kid, after like 4 years of playing with me, we were at some dinner, and the husband, that nice enough guy, he was like, "Yeah, man, you're doing great, man. I can't wait. Like you say, life is good." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like you always say, life is good. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I always say, "Isn't that LFG? Life is good." And everybody else at the table was like losing it. Like, that's not what it means. He's like, "What do you mean?" So as I say, life is good, LFG.
I love it. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks so much. This was great. We'll see you guys later.
Talk to you later.